Hello there everybody, welcome back to my channel. How are you doing today, beautiful? In today's video I decided we'd take a little bit of a deeper dive into Theatrhythm Final Bar Line, as I'm becoming a bit more comfortable with the hardest difficulty setting in Theatrhythm Final Bar Line, which is the Supreme difficulty, and I thought I'd share some of the tips and tricks that I found along the way to help me improve, in the hope that it might help some of you guys that are wanting to improve at the game as well. So if you want to find out little bits and pieces on how you might want to improve at Theatrhythm Final Bar Line, then stay tuned and keep on watching. Now, I'm going to preface this by saying that I wouldn't call myself a rhythm game enthusiast. Look, Theatrhythm is realistically the only rhythm game I've spent a great deal of time with, and I'm sure that there are many tips and tricks that other rhythm enthusiasts would go by, but I can only speak about what's worked for me, and hopefully some people who are more attuned with those kinds of games will be able to comment below and say the kinds of things that they've shared as well, or they've seen and are able to share as well. So I'm going to start by talking about what kinds of skills you'll probably find useful when it comes to playing a rhythm game like Theatrhythm, and I've actually taken some of these tips from other videos on rhythm games that I've seen, and I think it's important to note that it's as much about learning how to process patterns as it is to necessarily know music and rhythm itself. So you can go one of two ways about learning to do a rhythm-based game like Theatrhythm. You can either go a muscle memory route where you've memorized a song so well that you're able to just know what buttons to press in what order in order to get to the end of the song and get your triple S grade or your full chains or your all criticals even. Or you can go the sight reading method, which is how I've played a lot of it. And I have learned to play the violin in the past, and sight reading sort of sheet music definitely helps in that kind of environment and gives me that kind of ability. But you'll find that there are multiple ways that you can go about it, and whichever way works best for you is the way that you should realistically go down. Now, the first thing I would say that helped me out a lot with this particular game, especially transitioning from Curtain Call, which was a touchscreen based game on the DS, is to figure out early which buttons that you actually find comfortable to press, whether you're playing on a PlayStation controller or a Switch controller. You'll want easy access to both analog sticks in the case of combined notes, like slice notes, like when you're having to press both of those, either straight after or in combination with other tap notes. So my recommendation personally would be to start learning to use the shoulder button, so L1 or R1 if you're using a PlayStation controller for tap or hold notes, as flicking from face buttons to analog sticks and back again can easily trip you up. Now, I say this as somebody who is giving this advice, but I don't actually use L1 and R1. Instead, I use R1 and X so that I have my right hand exclusively for those notes, and I like to alternate between them so that it kind of gives me more of that flow, that rhythm, whilst I also have the left stick available at all times. But even then, I sometimes find that this trips me up in Supreme difficulty when I'm needing to hit 3 or more notes or switch between double notes and double slices. So L1 and R1 and having access to being able to do like both analogs and 2 face buttons at the same time is probably the way that I would go about it. A little extra note as well, I like to assign like the top 2 bars to R1 for taps and holds and the bottom 2 bars for X when it comes to hold notes in particular, because when you get alternating long notes, I will hold both buttons and then forget which one I pressed first. So I end up like pressing X second, letting go of X first, and then I end up missing the note. So I assign those bars to those notes in my head so that it makes sense for which button to let go of first. The next thing I'd say is just to find a song that you really like, and whether it be for the song itself that you really enjoy, or whether it's because there's a mechanic and the way that the game plays and the way the song feels when you're playing it, and practice on that particular song and focus on it until you get it right, whether it be because you're using, say, Joesephyr from Final Fantasy VII in the Ultimate or Supreme modes, because there's a combination of button presses that work really nicely together and it sounds really lovely and it looks more complicated than it actually is. So you can use that as an end goal for your difficulty to kind of scale up gradually on that particular song, if you wanted to do it that way. Or you could alternatively not get stuck in a small pool of songs. And once you've worked through the songs you're comfortable with, I'd maybe think about expanding your roster and just playing through the game and just playing all the songs on a particular difficulty setting that you're comfortable with, because by the time you've gotten through this big pool of songs, I mean, Theatrhythm Final Barline has a ridiculous number of tracks in it. There's bound to be a good selection that you're going to like on there. So working through as many of those as you can whilst on the difficulty setting that you're preferring, you'll find you'll naturally get better as you progress. And then when you go back to that song that you really like, or that one that has that mechanic that you really struggle with, you'll probably find that you'll find it a lot easier just because you've been playing the game more. Continuing on from that point, in terms of accuracy, if it's the judgments on the notes you're hitting that you're struggling with, and you're wanting to get those all-important criticals, a suggestion that I would make that definitely helps me out a lot here is to try feeling out the music itself for the judgment rather than the timing that you see on the screen. What I mean by this is, like, if there's a bit in the song that you really like that you're practicing coming up and you know exactly how it goes, you're doing your Man with a Machine Gun and you know exactly how the doop 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 goes, then you can feel that out for the timing and just kind of trust your gut on it. This is especially useful when notes look like they're way more complicated than they actually are, by being across multiple rows on the screen at once, when realistically they could have consolidated it into a single line. So by kind of having that combination of, oh, I know this bit is coming up, and practicing and seeing how it works and recognizing the patterns, whilst also kind of going, I know how this song goes, you'll find you're hitting those criticals a lot more frequently. If you aren't sure how those patterns go, you have two ways that you can go about it. Every song has an automated all-critical version of it, which you can watch, as opposed to going on YouTube and finding somebody else doing it. You can actually do it within the game, where you can just watch the song being played. But if you're looking at something that's sort of within your range, or something that you have a goal that you're working towards, recognizing those patterns and learning what parts of the song might be sort of more difficult or challenging than others would be a great way for you to prepare yourself for which bits you need to focus on. And similarly, in the practice mode versions of these songs, you can actually sort of fast forward to the sections of the songs that you're struggling with in order to keep practicing on a particular part or a mechanic that you're not quite sure about. So between those two things, you'll get a much greater feel for what you need to do when actually performing the track. Before we continue, don't forget to check out all of my social media links in the description box below, and come and chat to us over on the Discord channel if you'd like to learn more about Theatrhythm or talk to me or some of the other fans of the game as well. You can find me streaming Theatrhythm and Final Fantasy XIV and Final Fantasy XIII at the moment, all sorts of things over on Twitch if you'd like to come and find me on there. I've been picking up my audience after previously playing a game that I no longer play, and obviously, you know, trying to rebuild from that, so it'd be lovely to have you on there as well. And of course, I do always give a shout out to one of my patrons over on Patreon who very kindly support this channel, and I love to give my thanks to each person individually. And today that person is going to be Straighty, who has Noel as the title card on the credits at the end of all of my videos. And I do give a shout out to one person individually each time, for every title card that I make myself gets featured at the end of every video, and there's a plethora of other benefits. So if you'd like to support the channel and get all these benefits for yourself, then perhaps consider clicking on the link in the description box below for that too. You can also make small adjustments in the settings in Theatrhythm Final Barline that ought to help you out a fair bit as well. You would be surprised how much applying kind of the offset of the notes can actually work out for you. If you find that your timings are ever so slightly off, try changing the offset timing of the notes. You may find you actually find it easier, whether it's due to the latency in your monitor or just something that feels a bit more comfortable for you. You might find that it helps, and if it doesn't, you can always change it back. It's not the end of the world. It will feel weird to start with, but then maybe it doesn't. For a long while, like on one of my TVs, I offset it slightly so that it's a little slower, whereas on my PC monitor, by having a much less lag on it, I don't have to have that. So it differs depending on what monitor you're using. I would also recommend darkening the background once you're kind of, focusing on just performing the tracks rather than looking at all the pretty characters and colours in the background. Darkening the background makes everything just a little bit less distracting, especially when it comes to summons and things like that. You can turn some of the animations off when it comes to skills and summons. I'd probably turn those off too. if you're focusing on just getting the songs performed correctly, because the less distractions and craziness that's going on the screen at once while you're trying to perform these tracks, the easier it will be for you to focus on what it is you're actually doing. And then I guess the last thing that I would probably suggest is to not get tunnel visioned too heavily to the point where it stresses you out. This is a game. It's meant to be fun. And I know that I am very guilty of this. I know that many, very many people that I speak to are very guilty of this. But when you have a goal in mind and you want to hit that goal so badly that you will just keep mashing and going into this song that you really like over and over and over again until you get it right, sometimes that just doesn't work. You can either put the game down entirely and walk away for a while if it's just not coming to you. We all have off days, we all make mistakes, and it's totally fine. Or perhaps just switch it up with some songs that you know you can do, because at the end of the day, if you're not having fun, there's no point in continuing to bash your head against a wall until it breaks. Better to come away for a bit, enjoy what you're doing, and then revisit it a bit later. Like I said earlier, if you go and play a bunch of other songs that are on a similar level to what you're comfortable with, but maybe introduce some mechanics that you didn't know beforehand, you probably find you're a bit more well equipped to come back to that one you were struggling with anyway. So yeah, there's a few tips there for you that I've learned on my journey when it came to Theatrhythm, Final Barline, and Curtain Call. I played a lot of Curtain Call on the 3DS back in the day, and hopefully you'll get something out of that that may help you to hit those supreme difficulty tracks if you're not already hitting there, or even if you're kind of just new to rhythm games altogether and you just want to kind of learn a bit more about how to level up your game within them and you're enjoying it, especially with so many DLC tracks coming out as well. There's a lot of life left in this game, and there could be for a very long time. I play this game both to relax and to challenge myself, which is a wonderful thing to be able to do with a game, and I encourage you guys to try doing it as well, because it is a lot of reward there if you decide to go into it. Thank you ever so much for watching. Let me know in the comments below if there's something that you've taken out of this video, or if perhaps there's something that I've missed that you would like other people to know. It would be lovely to hear from you. Thank you ever so much for watching. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell for notifications of any future videos I might be making, because the algorithm is absolutely kicking my ass right now. And I appreciate you endlessly for it. Thank you ever so much, beautiful. I hope to see you again soon. Take care.